I'm from the Pan-Asian Women's Association. We're a charity that raises funds to give underprivileged girls across Asia an education. And our aim, really, our long-term ambition, is to raise a community of girls across Asia who can effect change from the grassroots up. So I'm going to give a slightly broader perspective, and I hope that's okay. Right, first of all, the topic today brings back memories, as almost 2 years ago, during the week of Thatcher's funeral, I was sitting in another committee room with a group of African female MPs, and we were discussing why there are so few women in politics today. And I can tell you they were a formidable bunch and quite Thatcherist themselves. Indomitable ladies, they were doctors, lawyers, economists, health workers, mothers who had turned to politics to effect change in Africa. They'd come here to learn about British democracy, and they met everyone from the speaker right down to people like me, sort of nobody really. And yes, they were surprised to see so few women represented at Westminster. Not much has changed as we prepare to enter an election that's dominated by these sound bites of identikit, white, middle-aged men. The only oddity this time round is that for some reason they're all choosing to be interviewed in their kitchens, and some of them are making dinner. And I guess that counts for progress in the world of political PR. Yet in that memorable week when Britain prepared to bury its only female Prime Minister, for once the media coverage was not about female MPs' choice of jacket or heel, nor was it a week to think of female politicians as political window dressing commodities. Instead, Thatcher's funeral was a chance to examine the historical imprint left by one of the greatest and most divisive leaders of our time. It was a week to look at what women can contribute to politics. She casts a long shadow, and that's partly because no woman has followed her since. Of course, if Mr. Cameron and Mr. Miliband stepped down after the election, we could see two women slugging it out for their jobs. Theresa May and Yvette Cooper, possibly. And what a change they'd make across the dispatch box. The idea of an all-female lineup seems too much to hope for, yet the diversity ends there, with no sign of Asian or black women, for example, in frontline politics now that Baroness Varsi's star has waned. In 2015, the Inter-Parliamentary Union took a look at women represented in national parliaments worldwide. 1 in 5 parliamentarians in the world are women. Who was the top-ranking country in this survey of 140-odd countries? Well, I was surprised to learn that with 56.3% of female representation, it was Rwanda. Britain languished at 57, and I think the Nordic countries expectedly did very well. They were in the top 10. Quotas is cited as a major reason why women have done well in certain countries like Rwanda. Asia also has a strong track record, despite being in a part of the world where women are traditionally seen to have lower status than men. In almost all cases, though, the family name played a crucial part, dynasty outranking gender in many nations' politics. The first female elected Prime Minister in the world was Sri Lanka's Srimavo Bandaranaike. She was elected in 1960. She succeeded her husband after he was assassinated. And that seems to be the rite of passage for many iconic female leaders in Asia, who took up the mantle of leadership only after their politician father or husband was assassinated. Yet they proved more formidable than any man once in power. You've got Pakistan's Benazir Bhutto, the Philippines' President Aquino, who restored democracy to the Philippines, but was dogged in office by the media nickname of First Housewife. Bangladesh's landscape is also dominated by women, and let's not forget people like Burma's Nobel Prize winner Aung San Suu Kyi. One of the towering figures in Asian politics was India's 2-time Premier Indira Gandhi. Now, interestingly, Indira and Maggie were BFF, and that's best female friends, I'm told, by younger people, and the two had much in common. As leading historical figures and female political icons, their common ground is worth taking a look at. Both were conviction politicians. Both faced down a hostile male-dominated press. They were polarising. They were adored and loathed in equal measure. Both won crushing military victories and were unyielding against terrorism. They both liked to play mother to the nation, and as you know, mother knows best. And they were surrounded by male ministers who cowered in their presence. Margaret was known as the lady, and Indira was the madam. They spoke on the phone often and shared a unique friendship. Thatcher once said, "We both felt the loneliness of high office, and it was good to be able to talk to someone who understood." Neither claimed to be feminists. They were simply leaders. But while they eschewed feminism, both exploited their femininity. They could be seductive and ruthless in the same moment. What's interesting is, despite the criticisms, Thatcher for social divisions caused by some of her policies, and Gandhi for the dark days of the 1977 emergency, their legacies are ones normally associated with male political leaders. These are women who made their mark in national security, counter-terrorism, and in the case of Thatcher, financial reform and deregulation. Yet decades on from their heyday, the progress of women is limited in both India and Britain, and many say that Thatcher and Gandhi drew the ladder up behind them. Globally, women make up half the voters in many countries, yet on average, only 1 in 5 parliamentarians. If our daughters are to aspire, they must see examples of female leadership as part of our everyday existence, not just the exception. Today, our daughters could look to Asia, to Africa, to Hillary Clinton in the US or Angela Merkel in Germany. If Hillary ends up in the White House, she'd send a message to girls everywhere, as clearly as Obama's election did to black and Asians everywhere. It is possible. If we want diversity in our politicians, though, we must have diversity in our candidates. And that means reaching beyond the bastions of privilege of private schools, Oxbridge, moneyed urban elites. Our parliament should be a reflection of our society, mirroring our diverse makeup. Instead, all too often, we look into the looking glass of Westminster and we see a representation that's utterly remote and unrecognisable. It's baying, adversarial, macho, often monotone. Breaking down the barriers and drawing candidates from across the spectrum will reflect our society better, make our politics relevant again. Women are making progress, slowly, and the more we report their achievements, the more it encourages the next generation to push harder and higher. We must make Parliament more female-friendly through better childcare provision, working hours that allow for family life, stamping out sexism that persists still. As more women here and worldwide reach the top table, it stands to reason that issues that women care about are pushed onto the political agenda. Their voices must be heard not just in female issues either, but on the big debates of our time, on the economy, on welfare reform, national security, on education. What do we as women bring to the table? Well, as the others have discussed, we bring not just our professional skills as doctors, lawyers, economists, activists, health workers, mothers, but life skills, such as mothers, first-hand experience of major policy areas which involve things like childcare, health, education, long-term care of the elderly, which is a massive issue today. And how can you be an effective politician if you don't understand those realities? Then there's the sexism that lurks still. Westminster, and I worked here for a few years as a political correspondent, and I doubt much has changed. It's infamous for its old boys club mentality, where male predatory behaviour lives on. Bottom pinching is not unknown in these walls. Within these walls, one female MP spoke of her initiation while she was queuing up to vote, and her answer was to use her stiletto to crush the offender's foot, all done with a lovely smile, of course. But there's a more insidious sexism in my mind, which is asking women to get involved in politics and then leaving them to languish on the backbenches. Not long ago, a debate was held by the all-party parliamentary group about women in Parliament, and a heckler from the audience said, "Give us ladders, not quotas, ladders to real power." In an era where the young think Russell Brand is a political messiah, and it's okay not to vote, we really need to engage our schoolgirls and give them an appetite for politics again. Get them talking about issues that directly affect their lives. For example, how many of you will be able to buy a house when you leave university, get a job with real rights instead of zero-hour contracts, How many of you will get into the boardroom of that company you worked for all your life? How many will fear the burden of debt being placed on the next generation's shoulders? This is politics, real politics for girls and women. We need to get schoolgirls into Parliament to see how it works, use mentoring to champion girls from all backgrounds, and tell them this is your Parliament and your voice matters. There's no point in asking for ladders if there aren't enough girls to climb up them. After all, the girls are our future. In my mind, the starting point is education. If you give a girl an education, if you inspire her through positive examples and role models, you can change her life. That is the ethos of our charity, the Pan-Asian Women's Association, and there are the lovely ladies that work with me. And for 5 years now, Power has funded education and training for girls from underprivileged backgrounds across Asia. It's been my privilege to work alongside these amazing women who run this charity. One girl at a time, that's our mantra. We hope to give girls a ladder out of poverty. It's a chance to transform their lives and help others to do the same, whether through medicine, the law, setting up their own little business. And, the beginnings are very modest, we understand that. One day, though, they'll have the dignity of earning a wage, and from there, almost any ambition can grow. The girls in our programme may in time become mentors or leaders in their field. They will light the torch of change in the communities they live in, and perhaps down the line, decades down the line even, one of these girls could emerge as a national leader in their own country, making change in the region. Asia's bonds of privilege, dynasty and gender are just as restrictive as Britain's old boy network and class structure. The bonds of the past continue to hold back girls everywhere. I'd like to finish by saying that Thatcher was the grocer's girl who climbed her way to the top, and her ladder was the opportunity of her ladder of opportunity was education. Indira Gandhi's ladder was dynasty. But the thing that united them was this: neither allowed gender to define them. Instead, they bulldozed their way through other people's expectations of who they should be. In the end, it is this mentality that created two towering, complex political leaders of the 20th century, who also just happened to be women.